Play it and I'll give you a car. Mocked the Heir. Until a homeless man played like a pro. A warm breeze moved through the city plaza as street traffic hummed in the background. A small crowd had gathered around a tall, well-dressed young man who looked far too confident for his own good. Chase Whitmore stood beside a gleaming black sports car, keys twirling on his finger like some trophy he had not really earned. His laughter cut through the noise. "So this is what you call music?" he said loudly, pointing at the older man sitting on a worn sidewalk cushion. Samuel Reed held a classical guitar across his lap, its wood aged but cared for. His clothes were faded. His shoes had seen too many miles, yet his posture was steady, eyes calm, almost gentle. Chase raised his voice so everyone could hear. "All right, play it, and I will give you this car. Any song, no excuses. If you are really a musician, prove it." The crowd burst into laughter. Someone whispered that Samuel lived under the old bridge. Another said he played for coins and scraps. A few people pulled out phones, already recording. Samuel did not flinch. His fingers rested lightly on the strings. Not defensive, not angry, just composed. People expected embarrassment. They expected him to fail. What they did not expect was silence settling across the plaza, the kind that comes before something unforgettable. If you are enjoying the story so far, remember to like the video and subscribe. There is more to uncover, and every moment ahead matters. People in the plaza only saw the worn jacket, the weathered hands, the quiet posture. They did not know what those hands once meant to a room full of young musicians who believed they were touching greatness every time he guided their fingers across the strings. Years before this day, Samuel Reed walked through the grand stone halls of Harrington Conservatory of Music, where sunlight touched polished floors and every corner echoed with rehearsals. He was not just a teacher there. He was the heart of the classical guitar department. Students requested his classes months in advance. Critics referenced his performances in lectures. His interpretations of Baroque pieces were known for something rare: gentleness without weakness, strength without arrogance. He believed music was not sound first, but breath and intention. He taught with patience that felt almost like grace. When a student stumbled, he guided them again, slower, clearer, until their frustration softened into understanding. Some professors chased prestige. Samuel cared about transformation. He volunteered extra hours to teach students from neighborhoods that could not afford lessons. He believed talent lived everywhere, waiting to be nurtured. But success does not always bring admiration. Sometimes it brings envy. At Harrington, there were departments ruled by politics rather than passion. A few influential faculty members, donors, and board members disliked how Samuel's influence grew. They whispered that he was becoming too popular, that students listened to him more than the dean. One ambitious administrator in particular, desperate for a promised promotion, convinced himself that Samuel stood in his way. The rumors began quietly. Soft suggestions, careful accusations, a forged signature, a falsified report. Suddenly Samuel was accused of something he could not defend against without evidence he did not possess. Grief froze his voice before anger ever could. The institution that once celebrated him now treated him like a danger to its reputation. Meetings were held without him present. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Apologies were delivered without eye contact. His position was revoked. His office was cleared. His name removed from website pages. The students protested, but protests fade when those in power wait long enough. Samuel tried to fight the allegations, but legal battles require money and connections, neither of which he had in comparison to the wealthy parents supporting the smear. His relationships in the elite music world grew cold. Respect evaporated faster than any of them had expected. He lost his apartment next. Then his savings. Then the quiet belief that justice always finds the truth quickly. But throughout everything, his guitar stayed with him. He repaired its cracks with shellac bought from thrift stores. He polished its wood with cloth scraps torn from old shirts. It was no longer just an instrument. It was memory. It was identity. It was the last piece of himself he refused to surrender. The city streets had their own rhythm. Cool winters. Hot summers. Nights full of distant car horns and alleyway footsteps. People walked past him every day, assuming they already knew who he was. A man who had failed. A man who had nothing left. A man who merely played music for coins. They did not know that once a stage belonged to him. They did not know that once the finest students waited for his nod of approval before playing a single note. They did not know that once applause rose for him in theaters where chandeliers hung like constellations. Yet Samuel carried himself with the same calm presence he had always possessed. His voice never rose in anger. His eyes never hardened with resentment. Some might have broken. Samuel endured. He found small familiar joys, the resonance of a perfectly plucked string, the way morning sunlight hit the guitar's surface, the small smiles from strangers who stopped to listen. Music had carried him through triumph. Now it carried him through survival. And though the world believed he had been defeated, something far below the surface remained untouched. A quiet certainty, a memory of excellence so deeply rooted that no rumor, no accusation, no humiliation could erase it. The truth of his life still lived in his hands, which is why, on this day, sitting on the pavement in the plaza, facing Chase Whitmore's challenge and the laughter of strangers, Samuel did not tremble. He knew something the crowd did not. He had not lost his music. He had simply been waiting for the moment when the world would finally hear him again. Chase Whitmore had grown up in a world where applause came before effort. His father owned half the luxury car dealerships in the state, and his family name appeared on billboards, charity plaques, and the VIP guest lists of every high-end event. People treated Chase like he was important long before he ever did anything to deserve it. He learned early that money could make crowds laugh, make doors open, and make people pretend his jokes were funny, even when they were cruel. And Chase liked cruel jokes. He liked the way people gathered when he teased someone weaker. He liked being the loudest voice in the room. He liked feeling as though his words could decide another person's worth. His friends encouraged it. Whenever they saw someone struggling, someone tired, someone different, they would nudge Chase forward. Go on, say something. Make it funny. Today was no different. The plaza was crowded with people out for lunch, tourists taking pictures, workers passing by with bags of groceries. When Chase spotted Samuel sitting on the ground with his guitar, coins scattered in an old plastic cup, he smirked as though he had discovered entertainment. The car parked behind him was sleek, polished, reflecting the sky like black glass. Chase leaned against it casually and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear him, knowing attention would follow naturally. Imagine thinking you are a musician and ending up here, he laughed. If you were even half as good as you pretend, you would not be sitting on the sidewalk. People turned, phones lifted. A group of teenagers paused their conversation. A businessman slowed his steps. Some of them watched with interest. Some watched with amusement. And some watched simply because people enjoy seeing drama unfold. Samuel did not respond. His expression remained the same, calm, not defensive, not offended, just present. Chase was irritated by that calm. He needed a reaction. He needed to feel like he had power. So he stepped closer, waving the keys to his car like a prize on display. Tell you what, Chase announced, his voice rising. If you can play something impressive, really impressive, I will give you this car. Right here, right now. No tricks, no deals, just play. The crowd reacted instantly. Gasps, laughter, whispers. Is he serious? There is no way that guy can play anything difficult. This will be embarrassing. Someone near the back muttered. He probably does not even know real music. Samuel looked up at Chase for the first time. His eyes were steady, not shaky or unsure. He placed his hands gently on the guitar, fingertips shaping themselves silently along the strings, almost like greeting an old friend. He spoke softly. I do not want your car, but I will play. Chase blinked, taken off guard. What do you mean you do not want it? This is a $200,000 car. Samuel shook his head once. I play because it is who I am, not because of what I can gain. The crowd fell quieter. Not silent, but less scattered. Some people stepped closer. A mother lifted her child so she could see better. A man in a suit lowered his phone, watching not to record but to listen. For the first time, Chase felt something he did not like. Uncertainty. But he could not step back now. Too many eyes were on him. Too many people expected him to win. He crossed his arms, raised his chin, and forced a laugh. Fine, play. Let us see what a street musician can do. Samuel shifted on the pavement, adjusting the guitar closer to his chest. The plaza noise softened around him. Footsteps slowed, car horns faded, conversations tapered. A breeze moved through, brushing loose strands of hair across his face. He closed his eyes, not to escape, but to return. Back to concert halls. Back to practice rooms at dawn. Back to students leaning forward to learn. Back to who he truly was. His breathing slowed. The crowd leaned in, instinctively holding their breath without realizing it. The first note was about to fall, clear and absolute, ready to change everything. The first note left Samuel's fingers like a breath that had been held for years. It was soft, gentle, almost unsure, but then it grew. It formed shape. It formed memory. It formed something deeper than performance. It felt like a voice finally speaking again after being silent for too long. The crowd, which had been noisy and joking seconds earlier, began to quiet down. A few laughs faded. A few eyebrows raised. The plaza air shifted. Something invisible yet powerful settled into the space. People leaned in without realizing. The melody Samuel played was not flashy or designed to impress. It was aching. It carried longing. It carried loss. It carried the echo of a life that had been broken, yet somehow not destroyed. The keys under his fingers were chipped and uneven. Yet he made them sound like polished ivory. A soft breeze moved through the plaza, as if even the wind wanted to listen. Samuel's face did not show pride or anger, only peace. His closed eyes looked almost like prayer. The music rose into warm waves. It filled the open square, wrapped around buildings, and moved through every listener, sinking into their chest. People felt something they could not name. Some felt their throat tighten. Others felt their heartbeat slow. Chase's smile weakened. He looked around, confused. This was not supposed to happen. He had set this up for humiliation, for entertainment, for mockery. The moment was meant to make people laugh at Samuel, not fall silent under the weight of his music. A group of teenagers who had recorded the scene with their phones lowered their arms slowly. Not to stop filming, but because their hands had gone still without their control. The music shifted again. It grew stronger, braver. There was sorrow in it, yes, but also strength. It sounded like standing up after falling, like rebuilding, like forgiveness without forgetting. A middle-aged woman in the crowd touched her chest. Her eyes shimmered. Another man swallowed hard, fighting the feeling rising in him. And in the back of the crowd, someone stopped walking. A tall man, in a dark wool coat, with tired eyes and graying hair. He carried the calm presence of someone used to lecture halls and silent libraries. Professor Jonathan Hayes. He had once been Samuel's mentor. He had once believed in him when the world tried not to. Jonathan stopped mid-step. His eyes widened. He knew this sound. There was a small flourish in the way the melody resolved. A gentle pressure in the middle of a phrase. A slowing at the end of a bar. These were not techniques. They were fingerprints. Emotional fingerprints that belonged only to one person. Jonathan whispered under his breath, voice trembling, "Samuel." His breathing grew uneven. The memory of the scandal, the pain of being unable to defend his former student, hit him again like a wave. He began pushing through the crowd, urgently, not taking his eyes off the man at the piano. Meanwhile, Chase continued to stand near the piano. His hand slowly lowered from his hip. The confidence drained from his face piece by piece. He looked small now. He looked uncertain. The crowd began whispering. The whispers were no longer mocking. They were stunned. They were reverent. A young man near Chase murmured, This is not a joke." Another voice followed. "Who is he?" Samuel continued playing. His posture remained still. His shoulders relaxed. His expression calm. The music flowed without hesitation, as if he had never stopped playing, even through the years of silence. People who saw him every day on the street now saw him for the first time. Not as a homeless man, not as someone forgotten, but as an artist, as someone who had once held greatness. Chase's face grew pale, and his jaw tightened. His fingers twitched with anxiety. He had no more words, no more laughter, no more control. He sensed the shift. The crowd was no longer on his side. They were on Samuel's. But the moment did not release fully. It held tension like a drawn breath waiting to be exhaled. The music reached a point where it hung in the air, suspended, like glass balanced on the edge of falling. Samuel slowed the final phrase. The last note hovered, trembling, as if it carried every moment of pain he had lived. And then, silence. A silence so complete, it felt like the plaza itself forgot how to breathe. And in that silence, Jonathan finally reached the front of the crowd. His face was filled with shock, recognition, regret, and something like hope. The truth was starting to return. The music slowed for a brief pause, yet every note still resonated in the plaza like a heartbeat. Eyes that had been watching with doubt now widened in recognition. Samuel Reed's fingers rested lightly on the guitar, calm, measured, as if he had never left the stage. The crowd, once laughing, fell silent, sensing something monumental about to unfold. From the edge of the gathering, a tall figure moved forward. Professor Jonathan Hayes, face composed yet eyes shining with certainty, cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady, carrying effortlessly across the plaza, "this man before you is no ordinary street musician." Whispers rippled through the spectators as Hayes continued. Dr. Samuel Reed was once a distinguished professor at Harrington Conservatory of Music. His methods shaped some of the finest classical guitarists in the country. 3 years ago, he was falsely accused by those threatened by his integrity and dedication to merit. The crowd froze. Phones lifted as everyone instinctively began recording, capturing every word. Hayes's eyes met Samuel's for a fleeting moment, a nod acknowledging both past pain and present triumph. Those accusations were entirely fabricated. Samuel Reed lost his job, his home, and almost his belief in justice itself. And yet here he is, reminding us all what true mastery looks like. Chase Whitmore's face drained of color. Laughter abandoned him, replaced by a mixture of shock and panic. The car, the bet, the social media post, all trivial now compared to the mounting shame pressing down from every direction. He opened his mouth, stumbling over words. I did not mean... The crowd did not wait for him. Cameras recorded his every flinch, every desperate glance around, as if the city itself were silently judging him. Children who had been mesmerized by the guitar now looked at Chase with the confusion and disappointment only truth could bring. Samuel remained silent, letting the music and Hayes's words carry the weight. "Chase Whitmore, this is your moment," Hayes said gently but firmly. "The world sees what you assumed. Appearances deceive." The realization settled on Chase like a heavy cloak. No wealth, no influence, no luxury car could protect him from the truth being broadcast live across hundreds of phones. Samuel finally spoke, calm and composed. "Your arrogance was loud, Chase. I only played because I could." His gaze swept over the crowd, landing on the teenagers and families who had gathered. Let this remind everyone watching that greatness cannot be bought, mocked, or taken for granted. It must be earned, practiced, and respected. The plaza erupted into applause, some clapping, others cheering, many still in stunned silence. Chase could only stare, trapped in the spotlight of his own making. The video captured it all: the arrogance, the exposure, and the undeniable artistry. Within hours, it would be shared, commented on, and spread far beyond the streets of the city, turning a simple challenge into a historic lesson. The first stage of vindication had ended. Samuel's story, once silenced, was now seen by the world. And for Chase Whitmore, there was no way to rewind, no chance to reclaim control. The truth was everywhere, vivid and undeniable, ready to ripple through every social platform it touched. The video of Samuel Reed's performance spread like wildfire. Views climbed into the millions. Comments poured in from every corner of the country, praising his talent, his dignity, and the lesson delivered without anger or vengeance. Samuel watched quietly, a small, satisfied smile forming as the world finally saw the truth he had lived with for 3 long years. Within days, Harrington Conservatory of Music reached out. The institution that had once dismissed him in disgrace now sought to correct its wrongs. A formal public apology was issued, acknowledging the false accusations and recognizing Samuel's unmatched contributions to music. Offers came not only to reinstate him but to provide resources for an independent music program within the conservatory. Samuel accepted, not out of desire for revenge, but because he wanted to restore what had been lost and use his influence for something bigger. With the promotion came a substantial budget, enough to launch a vision he had long imagined. The Center for Musical Justice. The center opened its doors to children from underserved communities, giving them instruments, lessons, and guidance free of charge. Samuel personally taught, sharing not only music, but the values of discipline, patience, and self-respect. The streets that had once been his home now served as inspiration for a new generation of musicians who would never be judged by wealth, color, or background. Chase Whitmore's public humiliation faded into the background as Samuel's legacy grew. The young heir was required to support the programs he had mocked, volunteering his time and resources. Slowly, he began to learn humility and respect, observing firsthand the difference between privilege and true mastery. Samuel's life, once fragmented and silenced, had become a beacon. The applause of strangers had turned into real change, giving him not just justice but the ability to lift others. Every student who entered the Center for Musical Justice became a reminder that greatness was never about status or appearance. It was about heart, skill, and perseverance. Even as Samuel prepared for new performances and initiatives, he remained grounded, remembering the long years on the streets. The music that had saved him now had the power to save countless others. The world watched, inspired, as a man who had been pushed to the edges returned not with anger but with hope, guidance, and the quiet force of excellence that could not be denied. Months after the viral performance, Chase Whitmore returned, not as a spoiled heir, but as a volunteer at the Center for Musical Justice. The same young man who had mocked Samuel now spent his days helping children, organizing instruments, and listening intently to every note they played. Each task was a lesson in humility, patience, and respect. Samuel never spoke of the past to him. He forgave silently, allowing Chase to witness how dedication, heart, and care could make a real difference. The transformation was slow but genuine. Chase realized that status, money, and arrogance could never replace empathy, understanding, and true talent. Children at the center flourished, encouraged by both Samuel's guidance and Chase's newfound sincerity. Samuel's quiet presence and unwavering excellence showed that greatness is measured not by what one owns, but by what one gives, creates, and inspires in others. Standing among the students, Chase finally understood what Samuel had always known. The real power of music and of life comes from courage, heart, and the determination to rise again after being knocked down. And in that realization, both teacher and former antagonist found a new harmony, proof that redemption, respect, and true greatness are possible for anyone willing to learn. A soft reminder flows naturally through the story. If this tale of resilience and justice moved you, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that prove greatness comes from the heart.